Before you watch Thor Love and Thunder, I am going to give a recap on Thor's journey through the MCU so far, and he's obviously been here since the beginning, so it's going to be a lot to tell, and I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. And whenever I talk about like team-up movies like the Avengers and stuff, I'm mostly going to just keep it to Thor's perspective and his journey and what that looked like. So if you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content. So I will start with the first Thor movie. So the movie begins by establishing some lore behind the Asgardians, with Odin waging a war against Laufey and the Frost Giants to stop them from conquering all the 9 realms. And in the process, they take the Casket of Ancient Winters, which is a magical item that can basically cause an ice age. In the present day, Thor is about to become the king of Asgard when some Frost Giants attempt to steal the Casket of Ancient Winters, who were let into Asgard by Loki, the brother of Thor, and the other Odin son. However, Loki is actually a Frost Giant who is taken in by Odin as a baby. Thor travels to Jotunheim to confront Laufey and the Frost Giants about what they had done, where a fight takes place and Odin has to show up to stop it. Feeling that Thor is reckless and is not actually worthy of anything, Odin banishes Thor and his hammer Mjolnir to Earth while enchanting the hammer, saying, "Whoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor." Thor lands in New Mexico and is discovered by Jane Foster, her assistant Darcy Lewis, and her mentor Eric Selvig, while the hammer is found by locals and becomes a small kind of attraction of some kind, before it's discovered by S.H.I.E.L.D. Thor finds the location of Mjolnir nearby, but he cannot lift it because he is no longer worthy. Meanwhile, Loki confronts Odin about being the actual son of Laufey the Frost Giant, and Odin falls into the Odin Sleep, where Loki takes the throne in his stead. Loki then offers Laufey the opportunity to kill Odin and get the Casket of Ancient Winters, but Sif and the Warriors 3, who are close friends of Thor, disagree and attempt to remove Thor from exile on Earth. In response to this, Loki sends the Destroyer after them, which leads to a fight in a New Mexico town, and then Thor actually nearly sacrifices himself in an attempt to save his new and old friends, which allows him to be considered worthy again, allowing Mjolnir to be recalled to his hand. Thor defeats the Destroyer and promises Jane he will one day return to Earth, and he leaves to Asgard to confront Loki. Loki betrays Laufey and kills him in a weird kind of attempt to prove himself worthy to Odin, and a fight ensues between Thor and Loki on the Rainbow Bridge, which Thor destroys in an attempt to stop Loki's plan of using the Bifrost to destroy Jotunheim altogether. Odin wakes up from the Odin Sleep and catches both Thor and Loki from falling off of the Rainbow Bridge, but Loki intentionally lets go and falls into the abyss of space. In the post-credit scene, we see Eric Selvig meet with Nick Fury, who opens a briefcase with the Tesseract in it, and we get the reveal that Loki is already kind of soft controlling Selvig while being shown the Tesseract. Now, the next movie is The Avengers. So in The Avengers, Thor shows up to Earth after finding out that Loki is there and trying to conquer it with the Tesseract. After taking Loki from Black Widow, Iron Man, and Captain America, Iron Man and Cap confront Thor in a fight which leads to a standstill, and Thor goes with them to the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier with Loki. Everybody begins squabbling with each other over exactly what S.H.I.E.L.D.'s plans to do with the Tesseract and the overall situation are, which could have been the proximity of the Mind Stone messing with everyone in the room, when the mind-controlled S.H.I.E.L.D. agents working for Loki storm the helicarrier. This causes Bruce Banner to turn into the Hulk, which leads to a fight with Thor. The fight basically ends in a draw when the Hulk's attention is diverted by a fighter jet shooting at him, which makes the Hulk jump off the helicarrier and back to the ground. Then meanwhile, Thor goes to confront Loki in his holding cell, only to have been tricked and be trapped in the cell by Loki. Loki releases the cell from the helicarrier, a design intended to be a last resort for the Hulk, and Thor goes falling down back to the Earth inside the prison cell, able to escape at the last minute. Everybody basically defeated by Loki, they all congregate back in New York City after Tony realized Loki's plan to beat them in front of an audience. Thor initially confronts Loki on top of Stark Tower, but Loki gets away on the back of a Chitauri. Thor, Cap, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Bruce Banner all meet in the street of New York, where Bruce Banner transforms back into the Hulk, and they have their first official moment as the Avengers. Making the fight explanation obviously short, they all work together and save the day from Loki, which ends with Tony flying a nuke through the Tesseract wormhole and destroying the T'Chari ship, while barely making it through the portal back to Earth. Thor takes Loki to Asgard in handcuffs, and the post-credit scene is of Thanos being told that to challenge the Avengers is to court death, which Thanos responds to by smiling. The next movie is now Thor: The Dark World, so at the beginning, it opens up similarly to the first Thor movie with some lore building by showing that Odin's father, Gorr, fought against the Dark Elves after they attempted to use a weapon called the Ether on the Nine Realms. Gorr locks the Ether away in a stone column, and Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, manages to escape the fight. In present day, Loki is imprisoned for his crimes that took place during the Avengers movie, and Thor, Sif, and the Warriors 3 are fighting off Marauders and Vanaheim in a journey across all the realms for peace. After this, they learn that the convergence is about to occur, which happens when all 9 realms align with each other. On Earth, Jane Foster and Darcy go to the site of a portal that was opened as a result of the upcoming convergence, where she is transported to a space where even Heimdall can't see her. While in this space, she finds the Ether and ends up absorbing it into her body. Because Heimdall could not locate her, Thor goes to the Earth to figure out what happened and ends up bringing her back to Asgard after she releases an unknown force of some kind, which was a direct result of her absorbing the Ether. Odin realizes it is the Ether and says it's going to kill Jane and bring about a terrible prophecy. After being awakened by the Ether's return, Malekith attacks Asgard and in the process kills Thor's mother, Frigga. Thor then concocts a plan with Loki to lead Malekith and the Dark Elves away from Asgard by bringing Jane to Svartalfheim. I honestly don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's the land of the Dark Elves. Malekith is tricked into removing the Ether from Jane, where Thor attempts to destroy it but fails, and Malekith ends up merging with the Ether, becoming much stronger. Loki presumably dies from being impaled in a fight that occurs, and Thor travels to London where he enlists the scientific help of Erik Selvig, but Malekith shows up to Earth to unleash the Aether at the center of the convergence. Thor fights Malekith through multiple realms, but they manage to win when they transport Malekith back to the Dark World and he gets crushed by a ship. The end of the movie reveals that Loki is actually still alive, and he's transformed himself to look like Odin so that he may rule over Asgard in secret. In a post-credit scene, we learn that the Ether was actually the Reality Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones, as it is being brought to the Collector to hold on to by Sif and Volstagg because they already have the Tesseract in Asgard, revealing that the Tesseract is also an Infinity Stone. So now the next movie is Avengers: Age of Ultron, which begins with the Avengers in the middle of a mission on Earth where they are attempting to steal back Loki's scepter from the first Avengers movie from a Hydra facility. There they encounter Pietro and Wanda Maximoff for the first time, who are Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, although Wanda won't get that true title until much later in the MCU. They successfully steal the scepter and return to New York, where Stark Tower is now Avengers Tower. Tony mentions to Bruce the concept of Ultron, saying that they need to put a suit of armor around the world so that one day they won't need to protect it. Tony thinks the scepter is the key to potentially having Ultron be realized. They throw a party, and during the party, the consciousness of Ultron is created from the Mind Stone inside the scepter, where he kills Jarvis, supposedly, and takes over some Iron Man bots. Ultron fights the Avengers briefly, but escapes with the scepter. Ultron goes back to Sokovia and recruits Wanda and Pietro onto his side. The Avengers figure he is going to go get some vibranium, which is the strongest metal on Earth, and they meet him in a port on the African coast, where a fight ensues between the Avengers and Team Ultron. Wanda makes all of the Avengers see visions, and essentially they're decommissioned, if you will, as a sort of mind control, where they just can't see anything but the vision, although she is not directly controlling them, obviously. The only one not to be controlled is Hawkeye, because he was controlled by Loki in the first movie and sees her trick coming, also Tony Stark. She ends messing up with Bruce's mind, transforming him into the Hulk, and causes him to go berserk on a nearby city. And the only other one not decommissioned, like I said, is Tony and Hawkeye, but obviously Hawkeye can't do anything against the Hulk. But Tony goes to the city in an attempt to stop the Hulk with the Hulkbuster, which results in him having to collapse a skyscraper on the Hulk. Defeated, the Avengers retreat to a safe house, which is really just Hawkeye's family's house. Thor leaves to learn more about the Infinity Stones, which leads to him having a vision where he sees all of the Infinity Stones along with a brief glimpse of the Vision, who is also named that because of what Thor is currently seeing, almost like a paradox. While this happens, a plan is devised by the rest to go to Korea, where they surmised Ultron will go to enlist the help of Helen Cho in creating a vibranium body for him. Wanda and Pietro see Ultron for who he really is when Wanda looks into the mind of the Mind Stone, and they betray him to help the Avengers take the body, which they are successful in doing, but Black Widow is captured in the process by Ultron. Back at the Avengers Tower, an internal fight happens when Tony and Bruce are attempting to finish the body, while Cap, Wanda, and Pietro are all against it because it could be worse than Ultron, or it could at least be another Ultron. Thor arrives and powers up the body to completion, which results in the Vision. The Vision appears to be good and earns Thor's trust by being worthy enough to pick up Mjolnir. They find out Black Widow is being held back in Sokovia, where they rescue her, and they find out Ultron's plan is to raise Sokovia into the sky and then have it plummet back down to Earth like a meteor, causing global destruction. They fight off Ultron and his bots and manage to win, with Quicksilver dying in the process, saving a child. The Hulk flies away on a Quinjet, turning off the tracker so no one can find him, and Thor and Iron Man destroy the falling meteor so it doesn't cause catastrophic damage. Vision kills what seems to be the last Ultron sentry, and at the end of the movie, there is a new Avengers compound in New York, and Thor suspects that they are being played by a bigger force because of the Infinity Stones. The post-credit scene reveals Thanos putting on the Infinity Gauntlet, saying that he'll do it himself. 2 years later, Thor has been captured by Surtur the Fire Demon, who tells Thor Odin is not on Asgard, and that he will destroy Asgard because of the Ragnarok prophecy. Thor defeats Surtur and takes his crown back to Asgard, confronting the fake Odin, who is revealed to be Loki. Thor and Loki go to Earth to look for Odin, where Loki left him, only to find that he's no longer there. They're then picked up by Doctor Strange, who questions why Thor has brought Loki back to Earth, but then helps them find Odin, seemingly in a location which will become the eventual new location of New Asgard. Odin explains that their sister, Hela, is coming, and then he fades away into his death. Hela shows up, where Thor throws Mjolnir at her and she shatters it into pieces. They attempt to flee through the Bifrost, but is followed by Hela, and she forces the both of them out of the Bifrost, and they land in Sakaar. Thor gets imprisoned by Valkyrie and must fight in this gladiatorial arena of some kind. He finds Loki there and finds out Loki has been there for quite some time because time strangely works different in Sakaar. Thor enters his fight into the arena, where his opponent is revealed to be the Hulk, who arrived on Sakaar after the events of Age of Ultron. Thor and the Hulk fight, which results in the Hulk winning, although Thor was incapacitated due to a stun collar around his neck that was activated by the Grandmaster, so that Hulk could finish Thor off. After the fight, Thor tries to get Hulk and Valkyrie to help him escape and save Asgard, but both of them initially refuse. Thor finds the Quinjet that the Hulk arrived on Sakaar with, but is followed by the Hulk, who then sees a recorded message from Black Widow, which turns him back into Bruce Banner. Valkyrie and Loki fight, which causes Loki to find out she is a Valkyrie, and Valkyrie knocks him out and captures him. She meets up with Bruce and Thor, and they devise a way out of Sakaar by stealing a ship of the Grandmasters. Meanwhile, a revolt is occurring of the gladiators led by Korg and Meek, friends that Thor made in the arena. Loki attempts to betray Thor again, but Thor sees it coming and leaves Thor behind, where he is picked up eventually by Korg and Meek. Thor, Valkyrie, and Bruce get to Asgard and confront Hela and her army, which results in Bruce transforming into the Hulk to fight her giant wolf Fenris, and Thor confronts Hela, which results in her stabbing one of his eyes out. Thor then has a vision he is talking to Odin, who tells him Asgard is not a place, it's a people. He also tells Thor that he is stronger than Odin ever could be, which makes Thor realize he doesn't need his hammer, and he is able to power up enough to escape Hela's hold and take on her army. However, knowing he is not strong enough to defeat Hela, he has Loki raise Surtur to destroy Asgard, and Hela in the process. Everybody manages to escape, where they begin traveling to Earth for a new home, and then in a post-credit scene, Thor and Loki look up to see Thanos' ship has come for them to get the Space Stone. Now, Avengers Infinity War, where at the beginning it is revealed that Thanos and his forces decimated the fleeing Asgardians, and he asks Loki to give him the Space Stone and he'll spare Thor. The Hulk briefly confronts Thanos, but is outmatched and Thanos wins. Loki gives Thanos the Space Stone, but in one last attempt at redemption goes to stab Thanos in the neck, but is stopped by Thanos using the Space Stone. Thanos then kills Loki and uses the Power Stone to destroy the Asgardian ship, which we find out later half of them manage to escape. Thor floats in space unconscious, where he is discovered by the Guardians of the Galaxy, who wake him up to find out what happened. Thor tells the Guardians about what Thanos is doing, and they devise the plan that the Guardians will attempt to get the Reality Stone from the Collector before Thanos, and Thor, Rocket, and Groot will go get Thor a new weapon to kill Thanos with. The Guardians fail against Thanos, which gets Gamora captured, but Thor, Rocket, and Groot go to Nidavellir to find out Thanos made the dwarves make him the Infinity Gauntlet, and that Thor has to help reignite the star of Nidavellir to forge the axe that will help him. Thor is successful in holding open the beam to activate the star, but it nearly kills him, and he needs to be healed by the axe, but it has no handle. This causes Groot to break his arm off as a handle for Thor to use as his new weapon, Stormbreaker. Thor then uses the Bifrost to arrive in Wakanda with Rocket and Groot to help Earth fight off Thanos' forces. Eventually, Thanos arrives in Wakanda, where he now has 5 Infinity Stones after acquiring the Reality Stone from the Collector, the Soul Stone by sacrificing Gamora, and the Time Stone from the group of heroes who fought him on Titan. Wanda Maximoff attempts to destroy the Mind Stone in Vision's head, but Thanos uses the Time Stone to rewind time to reanimate it. Thanos now has all 6 stones, but Thor attempts a last-minute effort in killing him by striking Thanos in the chest. Still alive, however, Thanos tells Thor that he should have gone for the head, and he snaps away half the life in the universe. We then see everyone start to fade away into dust, with Thanos sitting on an undisclosed planet, content with his victory. The post-credit scene has Nick Fury calling Captain Marvel for help before fading to dust. At the beginning of Avengers Endgame, Captain Marvel saves Tony Stark and Nebula, the only 2 surviving heroes from the battle on Titan. She helps them back to Earth, where the Avengers devise the plan of just going to kill Thanos and use the stones to bring everybody back. Rocket detected Thanos' location by him using the stones a second time, and they go there and Thor chops the gauntlet off of his hand, only to discover the stones are no longer there and Thanos destroyed them. In a fit of rage, Thor went for Thanos' head and decapitated him. 5 years pass, and Thor is living in New Asgard on Earth, with Valkyrie being the leader of the people, essentially because Thor has spiraled into an alcoholic depression because he feels as if it was his fault for what happened in Infinity War. The Hulk and Rocket arrive to try to recruit Thor to the plan they have devised, which was to time travel back in time and grab the Infinity Stones once more to use them to bring everybody back. Thor is reluctant, but goes along when he finds out they have beer. Once their time mission starts, Thor goes back with Rocket to the events of the Thor the Dark World movie in order to retrieve the Reality Stone. While there, Thor gets cold feet when he thinks about confronting Jane and also after seeing his mother, and he has a panic attack. However, his mother ends up finding him and has a heartfelt conversation with him while Rocket gets the Reality Stone. Thor wants to save his mother's life because he knows it's the day that she dies, but Frigga refuses and tells him that there's nothing wrong with him, essentially. Thor calls Mjolnir, and he finds himself still to be worthy, and him and Rocket travel back to present day with both the Reality Stone and Mjolnir. Once back, they find out Black Widow died sacrificing herself to get the Soul Stone on Vormir in the past. However, the Avengers successfully got all 6 Infinity Stones and assembled a new gauntlet, not knowing that the Thanos of the past was on to their plan, and captured the present-day Nebula and replaced her with the Nebula of the past who works for Thanos. The Hulk is decided to be the only one who has the strength to snap using the gauntlet, and he snaps back the other half of the universe. However, at the same time, the evil Nebula brings the Thanos of the past into the future to destroy the Avengers. This results in the final battle, where Thanos says that this time he is going to destroy the whole universe and rebuild it using the stones. Thor, Cap, and Iron Man try to work together to defeat Thanos, which even leads to Cap wielding Mjolnir, but they are unsuccessful. However, the reinforcements show up of everyone who was dusted, along with the people who weren't at the Avengers compound when Thanos launched his attack. Cap delivers his iconic Avengers Assemble moment, and they all clash with Thanos' forces. Obviously making a long fight short, Captain Marvel arrives to help, and Thanos manages to get a hold of the new Infinity Gauntlet, and just when he is about to snap, you find out Tony has stolen the stones from him and integrated them into his suit, where Tony sacrifices himself by snapping away Thanos' forces. At the end of the movie, Thor tells Valkyrie New Asgard will need a king, and he wants her to be that role. Thor then leaves the planet with the Guardians on a new journey where Peter Quill wants to go look for the Gamora of the past who stayed in their timeline after betraying Thanos in his forces in the final battle. So now I will briefly say that there is a multiversal variant version of Thor, known kinda as like the Party Thor, and he shows up in the Disney Plus series What If as a member of the Multiversal Avengers. But as I highly doubt that this movie will involve the multiverse on any type of big scale, I'm going to leave kind of that part out, but we'll get into some things that we know about Thor Love and Thunder itself. But if you are interested on that variant version of Thor, I highly suggest you go watch the What If Disney Plus show if you have not, and that's just a good show anyway, so I think you would enjoy it. So now I will also say, when we get into this stuff with Thor Love and Thunder, I have obviously not seen the movie, and I am not going to be going into any spoilers that might be out there from people who did see the movie. I am solely going to talk about some things that we've seen from the trailers that they have released so far. So the movie's main villain is Gorr the God Butcher, who in the comics has a grudge against the gods for feeling like they did nothing to save his family from dying, even though his society worshipped them. In the comics, he also wields a weapon called the All-Black Necrosword, which actually comes from Null, the symbiote god, who was responsible for creating symbiotes like Venom in the Sony franchise. It looks like they might be replacing that concept of the all-black Necrosword with something called the Shadow Realm, which Thor mentions in one trailer, and it would coincide with the scenes where we see everything kind of lose color and go black and white. In this movie, though, we will also get Jane Foster's version of Thor, who in the comics becomes Thor after Thor himself finds himself unworthy after the events with Gorr the God Butcher. Jane in the comics has cancer, and she becomes worthy to wield Mjolnir, which gives her the power of Thor and stunts her cancer so that it does not kill her. It's unclear if we will be getting the cancer storyline or not, but we are still getting her version of Thor in this movie. Also, the Guardians of the Galaxy will be in this movie, but I honestly don't think they will be in it for long, which is why I did not cover their movies. It also appears that we will get other gods, such as Zeus, played by Russell Crowe, which makes sense if Gorr is going to just go around killing them, and Thor has been mentioning in multiple trailers that he's trying to raise an army of gods to go up against Gorr. Other than that, there's nothing too in-depth that is known about the movie as far as the plot-wise or what we might be able to expect from the trailers, outside of that, the fact that there is a room in the trailers depicting cosmic entities that we have not been introduced to yet in the MCU, such as the Living Tribunal and Lady Death, so that's going to be interesting to see exactly where that leads. But that about wraps up everything I have to say about this video. This was a recap of everything going on with Thor and his journey in the MCU so far before you watch Thor Love and Thunder. So comment down below if you were excited for Thor Love and Thunder, and if you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content, and I appreciate you for watching the video.